All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome. Man, I need to, okay, I'll just stand like this. That's probably all right. Welcome to the Salt Lake Azure group tonight. We've got a special guest tonight, Mr. Mike Drigants. Usually the presenter is either me or used to be Brian Foster. So in order to make it so that people don't get tired of us, I've decided to go ahead and branch out. So I really appreciate Mike joining us tonight. He's going to do a little bit of a presentation on some AI for call center stuff, which is really interesting stuff. I mean, there's a lot of call centers out there, and a lot of the concepts I think that we're going to talk about tonight apply to other areas of AI as well. But first of all, I'm switching up the structure of these meetings a little bit. And so the first thing that I want to do is I want to take a few minutes and give you guys an opportunity to do what I call a lightning talk. If there's anybody here that wants to talk about something that they learned or wants to talk about something that they're doing, I want to give an opportunity at this time to let you do that. Now, I fully expect that nobody's going to want to stand up in front of everybody, which is totally fine, but I do want to give the opportunity. Does anybody have anything they wanted to chat about before we kick off the real stuff?
What's the time window?
5 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 minutes?
Maybe I could do something for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, come on up.
Go for it if you want. If you want to filibuster for a half hour, I'd be impressed, but it might be weird.
No, because unfortunately.
And then here, pop this on your lapel so everybody can hear you.
Sure. Just give me a second to find it.
Frank Visaggio, everybody. Did I see your last name right?
Yes, perfect, actually. Let me just.
I've been practicing.
Just finding the link to the repo.
Sure. The screen is working. What's that? The screen is working. Awesome, thank you. And we each have our own mic, so we should be really good. I think I finally got this figured out. I'm working on it. Change it. Next month it'll all quit working. Google canceled whatever I'm using. Google decided to turn off YouTube.
Save them money. I don't think YouTube's ever made money.
All right, I think, yeah, this is it. All right, so I unfortunately can't use this. Can I open something in a new window?
Yeah, go for it.
All right.
New tab, new window, whatever you need to do.
So I haven't started using this yet, but it looks pretty neat. And you're going to probably think, so it's a way to run like LLMs in the web browser with no back-end connectivity. And you'd probably think like, why on earth would I want to do that? .js, hopefully I find the repo. Yeah, this looks like it. So, and yes, so the reason that you might want to do this is, and hopefully I have the right examples page. The reason that you might want to do this is like a couple things. One is cost. If you can get the model that you want and you don't want to hit a back-end service, you'll make it a lot cheaper. It'll just run in the browser, if you will. Certain things for like speed and latency. So like depending on what you're trying to do, if you're just trying to see if like something's a cat or like what you're drawing, and mind you, I wished, hold on. Let me just, I'm just going to find the examples on my phone real quick. Oh, actually, wait, there's actually a mouse. Sorry. Transformers.js, examples. Yeah, here we go. So some of these demos, you can kind of see the benefit of this, right? And you'd think that these things are gigantic. They're like 50 megs or less. And the way that they do it is if you think of like the neural network and the different nodes and the path that you're going to go through to determine it, typically I think they're like 16 bits. You cut it down to 6 bits. Now you're gonna have less precision, but for a lot of things, it's good enough, right? So like just to know like, hey, you know, are they typing in French or German? It'll be good enough if you cut that thing in half. You cut that thing into a third to like auto switch. And I'm trying to find the examples. Yeah, right here. And you can see some of the stuff that they do is really, is better than I would have expected, right? So like, let me see. So the demos, yeah. So like, right, everything. And now the key takeaway here is like you have these models on Hugging Face. They're running in the browser. So if you're in like the defense industry where you're not connected to the internet, you could put them in the front end and they could be there, right? So like if I say, you know, today we are learning about Kubernetes. You know, I wonder, does French have a word for Kubernetes? But like that, this is happening all, and you can like check the network requests on your own time. They're not cheating. It's all in the front end, and naturally, and it's, yes. So you have to do this once in order for it to run, and then you'll see it, and it should work, right? And then notice in French, there's no other word for Kubernetes, and some of the more interesting ones that I thought was so like the image to text I thought was pretty neat. So like these ones, you'll sort of they're pretty good, especially for being entirely on the front end, if you will. Mind you, I put in like a picture of my favorite football player, Brett Favre, and they're like, football player wearing white and red. He was wearing Green Bay Packers green. There was no red in there. So like, you know, it's
colorblind. I
not
get it.
Yes, that's exactly it. But so like, is that because they're cutting down on the different nodes and cutting down the size to make it fit faster? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But just sort of playing around and seeing what you can do. And I think like the benefit of this is just the speed at which these things do run when it's entirely on the front end. Mind you, if you look at this one's 250 megs, where the one that was really neat, there was one where you would draw and it would guess what you're drawing, but yes, this image classification one, I think, or, hold on, it's a really good one. Yeah, I think this one, right? So this, play around with this one on your own time, and if you look, but like typically pretty good for it to run entirely in the browser. So with this, and mind you, this is just the first time the startup, but mind you, if you have a page going there, it's possibly useful for a couple of scenarios. Mind you, going to an actual backend for these libraries may be beneficial, but like if you're trying to not pay fees for the tokens, if your thing is open source, if you're just doing like sort of a learning project, maybe check this out. So something interesting. We don't actually have a use case to use it in our day-to-day work. I could think of some, but like we're plenty busy with other stuff. So that's
nice.
Everything that I wanted to mention. And there's a much more in-depth version, or if you're interested, the Web Syntax podcast, the person who made this repo did a hour-plus talk. So you could check that out in detail.
Nice.
Cool. Sweet.
That is great.
And Hugging Face, there's tons of stuff.
Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely tons.
So awesome, thank you. That was
Yeah, that's
awesome.
great. I didn't know we had that the JavaScript front end side yet.
All right, so that worked out really well. I'm going to do that. So you guys be thinking next time. What do you want to do?
And this is even thematically appropriate.
Exactly. So, so the next thing that I like to do is I always like to do a little tech tip. So that was a good tech tip. But I found this thing. A friend of mine showed this to me today. So I want to just kind of show it. So this thing called Visor. Oh, and you guys can't see it, but that's okay. You guys can see my screen here. Have you guys ever heard of Visor? Anybody? Yeah? So it's really cool because a lot of times when you're doing mobile development, you need to demo your application on a device to a customer, right? And you may even need to do it remotely. We had to do that today with a client. And so my friend was telling me about Visor. And you come in here, it's at visor.io, and it's free to download. So you download it, and then you get this screen right here. And if you can see this, which you can't because he's connected, it has Android and iOS. And all I did was I installed this, and that's all, and then ran it. And what happens is you can just plug your phone in. It will immediately recognize it. And I didn't have to install anything on my phone. It installs what it needs all by itself. But then you run that, and you see I've got my phone right here. Isn't that cool? And so then, if you have an app that you need to demo, like Chooser, for instance, then you can go in and you can demo the app that you're using. So Chooser is an app that I'm building that helps you pick where you want to go for lunch. So if you have a group of people and you want everybody to pitch in, I mean, what's the worst thing when you have a group of people, right? Where do you want to go to lunch? Well, I don't care. Okay, let's go to McDonald's. Oh, not McDonald's. Well, you said you don't care, right? So with Chooser, you can. It makes it really easy to pick a place to go to lunch. So it's on the stores now if you guys want to check it out. But Visor is a really cool way to do those demos, and then you can share this screen online and show your client over the internet. So anyway, that was my tech tip for the day. So let's go ahead and turn the time over to Mike. So Mike,
Yes.
is works for Software Technology Group, same place that I work for, and he is one of the career coaches in the Microsoft practice. And Mike is kind of our Azure AI guy. He's passed the AI 102, which is the Azure certification for AI, and he's been a big driver in the Microsoft practice for, how long have you been with STG now?
2 years.
2 years. So he's still a newbie, but he's been doing a great job. And so he offered tonight to come and do this, and so I appreciate it. So let's welcome Mike.
Great. Before we jump into that, I just, in this, showing additional stuff off. So as far as the cost savings for AI, now you get killed with tokens and stuff. So there's a couple resources I did want to show first. The first one I've got a bit more use on. It's called Focus. Has anybody here heard of Stable Diffusion?
Yeah.
All right. So basically what Stable Diffusion is a way of generating images. So I don't know, there's been multiple issues recently with image generation with AI. There was the Google fiasco where people figured out that they would put diverse characters into everything, so they started making diverse Nazi soldiers, which is interesting, I guess. And DALL-E, they ran into a problem because people were putting weapons and other things in there, so like they cracked that down. I was joking earlier that I wanted okay, lumberjack in a forest with a chainsaw. No. Well, what Focus is, it's Stable Diffusion. Based on the prompts you feed in, it will build images. One of the nice things about it is, down from this repo, it is free. Run it locally. You will need, I believe you do have to have an NVIDIA video card. That's pretty common these days. I have a 3080 and things are just fine. When I try to upscale large images, it sounds like the 3080 is trying to take off and fly out of my box. But otherwise, it's actually pretty good. And I've been using it mostly for tabletop RPGs that I play online, just to generate images and be cheap about it, because I don't like paying for service if I don't have to. Plus, this thing is really fun. I don't have it set up here, so I can't show the full user interface, but they go through here. If you just really, this and off the prompt of Forest Elf. Not bad. I put some pretty in-depth stuff in there. Plus, because it's Stable Diffusion, there's things called LoRa's, which are specific bits of prompting to generate certain effects. You can go online and find certain LoRa's and just basically steal other people's work for generating images. And totally free, yeah. Rethinking Stable Diffusion, Midjourney design. So that Midjourney is one of the things that does use Stable Diffusion. But it was kind of my way of getting around paying. And like I said, it's really easy. If you download this, you click to download, you run the bat file, it brings up a web page. You're good to go. It actually brings up a web page that looks like this guy. And then there's different additional features. And then for other models, so this repo is for Llama. And this actually will build out the Facebook Llama, but locally. I have not messed around with this too much because, quite honestly, this made me want to buy a new computer, so I haven't yet, because the large install on this guy needs 42 gig of RAM to run, and I don't think my 3080 is going to cut it. And I told my wife I'd wait till at least the 50 generation, so I'm like, eh. But this way, you also get around the issue of using tokens and paying for stuff, because you can just run stuff locally. Robert Rose, another developer here at STG, he turned me on to this because he's actually spent a weekend getting this up and running. So he's got multiple, Llama instances chatting with each other, help with code development, stuff like that. He showed me, looked pretty cool. I just didn't fully get into it, but that's just another thing you can do if you want to take advantage of that. But you're also really cheap, but you decide to spend the money on computing resources instead. And off to the main presentation here real quick. So as I can figure out how to actually full screen. This shows you how often I use.
Yeah, you just put the present button up there at the upper right.
Oh, present. Awesome. Okay. Azure AI for call center. So, okay. Don't make me lose this.
There might be a problem with that HDMI cable.
Because I think it happened last time too.
Yeah. It's on the YouTube.
Okay.
Go ahead and go, and
I'll keep rambling. So, one of the features that Microsoft is starting to offer, it's still in preview, is call center transcripts. There's a couple pieces that get involved in that, but it takes advantage of what Microsoft has already built out with their language and speech service. Full disclosure, I just use the AI service because I have my $150 in credit. I didn't feel like breaking things out. But obviously you can for billing purposes. And so I used to work in a call center. Everyone's young, they have hero jobs. I had a couple jobs in a call center. And to me, one of my big fears was they're going to listen to one of the calls where I did poorly. Because you're thinking, well, they can't listen to every call. What are the odds they hit one of the bad ones? And even more awkward is like when they're doing a review and they're playing you back to yourself. Because to me, when I hear my own voice, I'm like, who is that person? But the interesting here is the AI will listen to every single call. Everything comes in, everything's getting recorded. AI can also do sentiment analysis and opinion mining on the call, determine if your call was good. Was it bad? Was it neutral? So if a person starts generating a bunch of bad calls, they can start going in there taking a look. The AI can summarize the calls for a quick review. Instead of looking at a 9-minute call, looking at the transcript, listen to it, they can scroll to where the summary's at and just take a look at it. So, and then finally, it can identify the enrolled speakers for customer verification and fraud detection. That's distracting me, sorry. So what it'll also do is it will listen to multiple speakers. So if you have n numbers of speakers, it will record the number of speakers on different channels. And it'll be tagged up in the markup that way too. So you get a better understanding of who's speaking when, especially when you're just looking at a transcript. So in dealing with this, a call center situation, there's two ways you can kind of use this service. There's the batch processing versus real time. Right now, with processing this with still humans interacting with it, I think batch processing is going to be far superior. So the reasons we have here is it's cheaper than real time. It's much cheaper than the real time processing. This, one angular thing, dereotization, that's the official wording from Microsoft. Basically, what that's going back to is it's identifying the specific speakers.
So how does it do that? You have to define who
Automatically.
voice print?
It'll listen to the differences in speech patterns and tone and voice, and it'll automatically pick it up.
How does it know that my voice is Troy Phillips?
Well, it won't know that unless you're actually logged in, but it'll know, like, let's say they're listening to us.
A logged in user. Okay.
But even if nobody's logged in, if they're just listening to a call with none of that information, they'll be able to determine, like, okay, the two of us are speaking. I'll be on channel 0, maybe you're on channel 1. Dan will say something, he'll be on channel 2. So it'll go like that. So you can still kind of differentiate different speakers are speaking, even if you don't have a tag as far as the name goes. Now, if you do have a login, you can get certain information. You can start tagging stuff up too, like that. Sentiment analysis, that's the emotional tone of the call. Also, multiple audio formats are supported. Real-time processing, you're running to a higher cost. One thing I thought was interesting, Microsoft calls out, you get about a 2-time processing speed doing it real time. I don't know why. It wasn't explained in the documentation. It's like, it happens to run twice as fast, which is probably why you're paying more as well. And I'll show in a little bit, the processing can actually take a little while, not as long as like a human listening to the call. But when I first ran it, it surprised me. I thought it crashed. I'm like, there's no way it's going to take this long. It's been like a minute. And it spits out like, oh, okay, that's fine. But it just surprised me. And then only the audio wave is supported right now. Not a big deal, but, and I'm sure the real-time processing will get better. What this is going to shine to eventually is when more places are having AI on voice interacting with customers. It's something that can be done right now, but there's a degree of lag time, and you have to, set the voice up. And a lot of people are kind of weirded out that if you think you're talking to a person and it's really not a person, it's a little. I think we're more comfortable as people with a chat bot that we're typing with, versus that bot talking to me. And obviously the emotion and the inflection's not all there. If you've seen any of the YouTube videos of some of the AI speech stuff, it's like that. It sounds like that person, but the tonality's wrong. It's like not how a human would talk. Yes. Yes.
Here, let me give you the mic so that we can hear you.
In 2016, like Cortana was pretty rough with like HoloLens, like just trying to get people to say enter demo from non-US demographics. Is like, how good is that sentiment analysis? Like have you messed around with it to see, like, is it just going based on tone? Like if you're louder, it thinks you're upset, or?
No, it'll look at the words that are used, the tonality. Like it does seem to focus a lot on the language structure, but from my looking at it, it's pretty good. And what they'll also do, and we'll get into that when we look at the documentation, is they'll have confidence intervals. So what it'll do is, based on the phrase, it'll actually chop down a much smaller phrase, and it'll go, this is 7% positive. This is 3% negative. This is 90% neutral. And they'll usually have I'm pretty sure that this one, they'll have a confidence interval associated with that as well.
Hey, Mike,
Yes.
we need to connect up our screens again real quick.
Oh.
It disconnected me for
Oh.
some reason.
Nuts.
Sorry, we're gonna
No
reconnect
problem.
Up the screen. So it's the Google, yeah,
Generate code.
yeah,
All right, whenever you're ready.
okay. I won't share it out to the, all right, okay, I'll just type it in.
1930
I got it.
52
I don't want to broadcast it over YouTube.
94 6228. Luckily, it'll expire in a couple minutes.
Well,
If they blow up my computer in the meantime.
yeah. Well, luckily that you could only see it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, whoops, that's,
Yep, share. Okay.
oh, that's the wrong screen. What's going on?
I think we're okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. Okay. All right, there we go.
Okay, presentation.
All right.
Okay.
Cool. Sorry about that, YouTube
Yeah.
and everybody.
Okay. Yeah, I was talking about some analysis. So it's pretty good. The one issue I saw with messing with it is one party can skew the interaction. And what I mean by that is, if you have someone who is kind of neutral, let's say the customer's calling in and they're somewhat neutral, and you are very friendly, you can push that overall, because it'll grade it by phrase, but you can also look at by group. You'll grade, the overall curve will be more positive. And then that's going to have to go into reporting of going like, well, channel 0 is our person, our rep. We don't care how, okay, maybe depending on the person, it's like in this instance, we don't care if our rep is friendly because he's supposed to be friendly. Let's only look at what the client's thinking. And what you can also start getting out of there is, it's not on the screen, but it's when you're doing the opinion mining and looking for keywords, is you can start mining certain keywords out. So like, let's say, it's the customer service for an automobile manufacturer. I don't want to name anyone so I don't disparage anybody. But let's say they're having a recall issue. And they're getting a bunch of angry phone calls because like, hey, I'm going to be deprived of my car. You can start seeing that these keywords show up like, oh, well, they're calling about the recall. So you can start doing classifications. And we'll go in that too. So that's where I think a lot of this is really important, is the safe field time. So I go, yeah. And, intent recognition. That's something else they're doing, is looking at the speech and trying to determine based on their language model, what does the person actually want? Like, go to floor 7. What does that mean? Maybe you need to take the elevator up. It's trying to determine based on a phrase what the actual desire is, and language identification. So depending on how you set up your AI service, you can hard set it up to code to a specific language, which is cheaper, or you can just open it up, in which case it will actually listen and give a confidence estimate based on what language is being used. What gets really interesting is when multiple languages are being used, like the example Microsoft uses is the speakers start off in English, and then in the conversation they jump over to French. So in the return, the language is somewhat ambiguous because it starts giving confidence intervals, but if you start going through there and it does the markup, you can get everything to mark up in English, but it'll actually say, oh, the speakers here were speaking in French, or the speakers here were speaking in English. Because I ran this over the weekend, I was running some of this again on Japanese. Translation I thought was iffy, but like I know Japanese, like some people do. But to me it was interesting because I wasn't even like trying to finagle things. Like, listen to this Japanese conversation and tell me what you think. So it actually is pretty good about that. And that might help out multilingual call centers if maybe the supervisor doesn't speak Spanish or whatever the secondary language is used, because how do you start reviewing people when you don't actually understand the work? Going by tonality might even be difficult for certain things. Okay. Yeah. So what does the Azure Language Service do? So this named entity recognition categorizes words into categories. So like names or places. So an example we'll give is a person is giving their name during a call. It'll listen to it in the transcription. It'll go like, oh, that's a name, or that's a place. So it's pretty good about that. This is also going to be the example I show. Personal identifying and health PHI information. It's a little interesting because I think there could still be some work here done. So in the return I'm getting back right now is giving the raw, as well as one that's actually had the PHI, PII and PHI filtered out. So that can be important when you start sharing that information out to third parties. Because I worked in the health information field for a while, and you can really run into serious compliance issues if you leak out or share PHI. I think it's like $50,000 a pop. It is a huge no-no. So this will help go through there and strip stuff out, because what we were having to do was we have to pay the subject matters experts to read the medical document, to strip the PHI out, and still preserve the flow of the document. Where here, it could just do that.
Mike,
Yes?
when it redacts it or it strips stuff out, does it completely remove it, or does it just mask it?
Mask it. And what actually, and I'll show you when I get to that piece of document, what is interesting is in the JSON, one of the categories underneath it will actually, you can do the reveal there going, okay, so this is actually the PHI information, and they usually tag it up with like the named entity recognition as well. It's like we redacted it because it's a name. So, and that's something you wouldn't be able to send that raw JSON out, but it would be filtered, go like, well, we can take the transcript notes because they're safe. We just couldn't drill down further and then send the information we're masking. Yes?
Azure, like, can they guarantee they'll split the fine?
To my knowledge, Azure is not guaranteeing any of that. And maybe that one of the reasons in preview, because when I was, yes, this is still in preview. Now, the interesting thing I think is this is in preview, but the underlying pieces aren't. And that might also because, like I said, playing with it, I found some things I thought were strange. And truth be told, Microsoft is trying to prepare this to be a very code-light solution. So the code I'm running, I pretty much just stole from Microsoft. And there's an ingester to help set this up to do the batch stuff with ingestion. It's also written by Microsoft. So if a company were to try to implement this, the actual developer time would be mostly building out the Azure framework and setting things up and wiring everything up, because the code's already been written for the most part. You still probably want to do some fine tuning. And like I said, going through the code I'll be showing for this demo, there's some stuff in there that I don't like. Like, if certain things come back as exceptions, it'll blow the whole thing up and won't return any kind of transcript, even though I can tell it like made it through the first couple steps, then blew up later. So there'd be some stuff I would recommend refining, and Microsoft might be doing that right now. But like I said, it's still in preview, but it's pretty good the way things are. You talk about sentiment analysis, opinion mining, look at phrases, judge the positive. You brought that up. Summarization, talked about it briefly too, will generate a summary of the text, extracting sentences that give the best representation of what is important in the text. And from the call I process, that has that as well. So what is this actually doing from the programming side of things? So it packages, we're sending off a JSON package to this Azure AI service. Package will have URI for the audio file. So we can go get the audio file, language service key and endpoint, speech key and region, where the output will go. Those are the ones that you have to send. There's other optional ones like passing in a language or some other stuff you can do. And what it actually is doing here is, first it starts off, process the audio file. We generate a transcript. Breakdown of the speakers by channel. That's like, speaker 0, speaker 1, so you can differentiate the speakers. The sentiment analysis on the phrases. Is this a positive phrase? Is this a negative phrase? Is this a neutral phrase? Then we generate the summary of the conversation. We do the breakdown of the PII, the masking of it, the classification of entities, like names.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
So with that breakdown of the speakers, say everybody's in the same room and it's on a speakerphone, would it be able to differentiate the speakers in the room?
It's supposed to. One of the things, if you go through the Microsoft documentation, they said that specifically what they've done, because they expect this to be used in call center environments, is they account for noise, background noise, and multiple people talking and being able to pick things apart. And what various people have done with background noise and stuff, it wouldn't surprise me. I have not seen any live testing of that, but they call it out in their documentation. So I'm assuming they can handle it, because they say in the documentation, we've seen this issue, we believe the thing. Having said that, does remind me. So what this is using is the generic models that Microsoft has. So they also call this out in their documentation that if you have certain words or phrases that are not normal, that wouldn't necessarily be in the model, that's when you have to go in there and start doing some tweaks and start doing some custom modeling stuff. Because if you have, let's say, a pharmaceutical drug that has this really weird name, it's not in the model, it's going to fail on the transcription because it doesn't know what you're saying. And that's where getting that into the model is going to help with the transcription. But this is just, whenever I talked about the AI stuff or using AI in general, I try to start from a framework of, can we use the base thing that Microsoft or really anyone has already built? Because that's a cheap version. Overall, I'll get into costing later, but overall, a lot of the AI stuff is not that expensive for what you're getting until you start going into that custom area. Then you start paying a lot more because you have to start doing custom models and all kinds of other custom stuff. And that's, that's where the costs really can start picking up. And I'm hoping we're going to have a convergence where, one, that'll start getting cheaper, and two, as this gets smarter as the years go on, the actual need for doing that customization is going to become less and less, because it's just going to get better, because of the flow of technology. Okay, so why this is useful? I brought it before. It listens to every single call and transcribes every call. So again, my fear, the younger man working in a call center, there were some calls you just didn't want to listen to, or wasn't your best day or whatever. Well, this is going to capture everything. If people start doing hangups, it's going to pick like, okay, you were on there, the call ended in 47 seconds right after you determined this was going to be a tough call, dead air. Okay, it happened again. You start getting a better picture of what kind of employee that call center employee actually is. You get these summaries, so it's not back to, again, having worked at a call center, certain types of people are more likely to ramble on and just drag on a conversation on and on and on for a very long call. Well, it's no longer the supervisor's problem. They get to jump to the end. And in my mind, with some nice series, you can start pulling keywords, reporting based like keywords, what kind of sentiment analysis are we looking at? So you can actually start getting some metrics besides supervisor X listened to employee Y, and this was their opinion. And you start generating concrete numbers across all of the different employees. Yes. Yeah, you could do that. And what I would recommend, actually, we're in the costing area right now, so great question. What I would recommend for that is kind of do some math to generate random samples. Because my recommendation is going to be batching things. So if you want to just say, let's say you just wanted to save these batch files off, which is still you're going to do from a call center perspective because you still want them saved just in case. Maybe you don't want to transcribe them all. You start going, well, we'll do the random sampling from employee Y and we'll send those up to transcription. So the rest will still be there. But so right now, I pulled these numbers today, so I hope they're right. The transcription costs 10,000 minutes, $166.60. So I just did some rough math, assuming an 8-hour shift is 7 hours because people have breaks, maybe some downtime. So 7 hours seemed pretty good to me. It's 2,100 minutes per employee per week, or 8,400 minutes per month. So, you know, you're not quite at that $10,000 mark or 10,000 minute mark. If you think, you know, a bit cheaper. Service bus costs, 1,000 events landing in the create transcription queue, another 1,000 transcription cents, up to 13 million messages. So it really is going to depend on your issue. You're not going to run a big service bus cost. Storage costs, depending on where you're storing the other stuff, I could see, you know, certain issues, but you have the base storage cost there. That's just the Azure storage costs. The Azure functions for consumption, because my assumption here is you're probably using the Microsoft ingester. So you're just running things off of their function. So you get the free ones, and then, you know, X amount, and then you have the key vault costs, which are insubstantial. So like my back of the envelope math is realistically, you're probably looking like maybe like $100, $120 a month. If you're running every single call from your call center, $120 a month per employee. Which, I mean, no sick days, no time off, everybody's running full bore, and you're getting everything through. So I think that's a pretty good rate of return, because having been in that environment and talking to people, so you might have like a supervisor who like, are you doing the base compliance? And you might have, like if you're talking about PHIs, like somebody's listening on for the PHI stuff, you might have multiple people listening to a call, and they're all taking that time to listen to the call, versus those people might just pull up a report. And if they think something's bad, they can just go ahead and look at it. One of the nice things too is, I'll double check it, but you know, it has a lot of information in there. So if you write the report right, you could probably, I believe, Telltales Let's Go, so I just looked at this, we'll see if my memory serves me right, that you actually can get certain, no, it's instances of where it's at in the transcript, it's not in the time. But you can jump to different places in the transcript where things are, which should give a rough indication if you actually want to go back and listen to certain aspects of that call too. So that's it for that. What I'm going to show right now is that piece of Microsoft code, as soon as I can see my cursor. As soon as I can see my cursor, there we go. So, okay, I don't want to show that one. So, you run this guy again. I'll just have to make a second one. So this is kind of, is that, yeah. So this is just me sending in the command. Where you're going to run things, run this, you know, crap, I shouldn't be showing that. I'll change that when I get home. So I'm showing my keys.
I can blur those out.
Okay. Yeah, so what's happening now is this guy is sending, I wasn't even thinking about that, my bad. Yeah, so, yeah, so it's got that 10 section to complete. While that's going, because it will take a while, this is what it actually generates though. This JSON here. So we get the source.
So what did you pass into it? Did you pass in an audio file or something?
An address for an audio file.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Are you storing that in blob storage or what?
Yeah, this is just up in Azure storage. Yeah, so yeah, I just passed in that one, and it wants things to be up there. Because I tried, can I just pass it up? It's like, no, it wants this, which is fine because you're storing in searching. So this is what I just passed in. So it's got this duration and yeah, that's call one separated. Yeah, that's where it's the actual picking it up from. It's pulling from the GitHub repository. So, so this is the thing. You know, this is a call for health issues, which is nice because this is an actual something you would actually use to check the PHI. So we go through here, recognize phrases. So it's a success. Channel 0, so it's speaker 0. It has the ticks in there, so okay, you actually can go to where it has a tick. So it's like hello. So and then you go to it's a confidence interval of 0.94 that it's hello, and it's 0.18 positive, 0.7 negative or neutral, 0.05 negative. I don't know how you get the 0.05 negative, but there you go.
Maybe that's what it was.
Hello. Yeah. And we're still in channel 0. Thank you for calling Contoso. I think it's actually Costco.
No, Contoso is the
Oh.
Microsoft sample.
Oh, okay. That's why, because their other sample was for Costco, so I thought they're using the same sample.
So it doesn't just pick out each word, it picks out phrases that are together.
Yeah. The channel is speaking. So we're still in channel 0, which is the initial speaker. Because they're like, hello, for here, who am I speaking with today? And we get further down, it's going to kick over to channel 1, which is going to be the person calling in. Yeah, here we go, channel 1. Hi, my name is Mary Rondo. And it's not doing it here because it'll do another section of this, where this will be basically masked out. You won't get a name, because that could technically be PII.
And like channel, I'm not great with naming stuff, but I don't love the name channel because it implies like a different line. If we have two people in the call center, we were tag teaming on speakerphone, maybe channel 2 and 3 for both of us.
It should, because I was telling to Troy, it will listen, and based on how you speak, it actually is supposed to go in through there and doing that determination. Now, in batch transfers, in real time, I don't think you get that yet, at least according to the documentation. But yeah, in a batch transfer, like let's say if Troy were sitting here in this office on a call with a client and was being recorded, it should pick us up separately. So while it says channel, which I can use like, well, they're on one channel, but it's actually probably speaker would be a better name, but I don't know why they went with channel. They just did. So yeah, we go through here. Most things are pretty neutral right now. I'm trying to enroll myself, all pretty neutral. Yeah, are you calling because you need health insurance? So yeah, I mean, most stuff pretty neutral, but it's picking stuff out. That's all pretty good. Let me jump around a little bit.
So what does ITN stand for?
I don't remember what these are. I think because it's listening to speech, I think it's just going to you have an option of which one you're going to show, which one process. Because like the display one to me looks like if you were typing it out, because you have proper capitalization for the most part and punctuation. Whereas like a lot of the other stuff is it just kind of reads off as it was listening and just let things go. Yes, it was recognize phrases. Yeah, so here we go. The conversation summary results. We have the conversation. It was an issue. The customer wants to roll in health insurance with Contoso. Aspect resolution. The agent collected the customer's information and informed that the agent will call them back in 24 hours to confirm their application. Customer inquired about receiving a physical card as proof of coverage. Agent confirmed they can send a physical card, That's a pretty good summary, really. Like if you're a supervisor coming in going, what was the call about? What did the agent do? Well, it's right there. So,
I mean, I can almost see this being valuable, not even just for call centers, but for like calls with clients or calls with anybody. You don't have to take notes as much. This will take the notes for you.
Trevor actually asked me about that. Apparently he was using something like this, then couldn't. It's like, could we build that? Yeah. I just probably need a little bit of time, and I could slap this together for STG. And that might be a good idea because this is something we can show a client going, it'll just listen to your calls and generate stuff like this.
I guess
reasonably
you just may
inexpensive.
have to let them know ahead of time that, hey, this is being recorded.
That is always a good statement. I mean, technically Utah's a single party state. So legally you're fine, but most people, and that's why you've like this call is now being recorded for that reason. So what you'd probably end up doing is you turn on the recording for like a Google Meets or whatever, and you rip out the audio file and upload it. Instead of a batch thing where it just rips the audio file out, dumps it into the ingester, and it processes it. But yeah, you wouldn't necessarily have to take notes because like what was the call about? Bam, you got a summary. There's no reason to listen.
And how long did it take to run this?
That's a good question. I mean,
Oh, is it still going?
no, it was done a while
Oh,
ago.
okay.
I think this took about a minute.
So it takes less time than the audio?
Yes.
than the length of the audio.
Yeah. So it does take less time than the audio, and I would imagine the best thing to do would be, when structuring things out in Azure, is to just process things, as a batch. It's like, I only need this process in time at this point in time, and just let it run through at night. Because unless you're like one of those, I have to have it right now, most of the time you can probably wait a day. It's just specific cases and force things through. But yeah, it does that. And then, yeah, here's where we start going into the PHI. Hi, my name is masked out. And then if you go down in here, I saw that. Yeah, here we go. That's what I said about it also being displayed, because hi, my name is masked. Well, the actual test of that's Mary Rondo. It's a name. That's the offset. That's the length. That's my confidence score.
So this is the raw data. What you'd want to do is take this to display it to somebody and have everything redacted that you want redacted. You wouldn't
Right.
give this because
No, yeah, because this is terrible, because you're redacting it and then handing it to them. But, so this is actually multiple reports in one, because the first one I showed, it's all jammed together in JSON, but the first one's like, here's the call, here's the response, here's my sentiment analysis, here's my summary. This one is mostly showing the PII. Mm-hmm. So yeah, what you would then do is you'd have another layer, probably running Azure, going, okay, pull this JSON file, read it through, and then send the packet out to whoever, so all the PI's information stripped out of it, if it needs to be stripped out of it. Mm-hmm. And if you're working with something with medical stuff or finance, then yeah, that's going to be great. Yeah, hi, my name is Mary. Again, that stripped that out. Okay, yeah, okay, so, blah, where I think that was probably a little excessive, but there's the name, Mary Beth Rondo, last name, da-da-da-da-da. I think, again, a little excessive in the blanking things out, but
It's stripping out every instance of the name.
well, it has again. Like, you could technically have again, comma, stripped out. But having worked with PHI stuff, I would rather, especially early on, Microsoft be more aggressive with this, because you don't want to necessarily get hit by this. Plus, it's going to make more people feel better, because one issue I've run into speaking to people about AI stuff is the fear, will my data be used? Is it going to use my data for training? Well, Microsoft says it won't. Is that 100% true? I don't know. They just say it won't. I actually assume they won't. If you're using it in Azure, if your data is coming through in a different way, possibly. But if you're actually sending it in Azure, I don't think they would, because it's a legal nightmare. But I can understand a lot of people going, I don't want to get hooked up with this. And that's one of the pushbacks I could see from a company that maybe wasn't aware of that, is the concern, well, now Microsoft has all my data. Well, your data's in the cloud, but likely the data was going to be in the cloud anyway. So this just makes it in a more easy format. Like, obviously, if somebody got access to that API and could start pulling stuff down, you might be in trouble. But if you locked it up with proper APIs, like you wrote it where they can't pull that PHI or PII stuff, period. It never returns out. No one gets it. Then they could get access to it, but okay, there's been a breach. They can pull that down. They still can't get you on a PII or PHI violation. They just don't want it to happen. Or they just bypass it, or they hack your Azure account, which is probably bad management. If they hack Microsoft, you know what? That's on them. Good for them. It's everybody's problem at that point. So I don't think there's much more with, okay, the PHI redacted content, conversations, yeah, that's the redacted stuff.
So you showed the PII redacted. Is
Yeah.
there any PHI redacted?
I did not see anything. It's just. I think that's also just labeling, though, because if I was them, I would probably just put in the same relevant bucket anyway. Like, I don't want names, I don't want social securities, I don't want birth dates. Mm-hmm. So you would have the language model trained out like just on those things. So I think that's just how they're listing things, is anything that would be a way to identify this person, we're just stripping out. And except, yeah, there's a definition difference between PII and PHI, but I'm guessing they're just ripping it both at the same time. And they're being aggressive about it. So is there any other questions? Because that's about it for me rambling.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
Is any of this available in the government cloud section?
That is a fantastic question. I do not know. I don't know how much.
Yes, probably not. If I were a bet man,
Yeah.
I'd say probably not, because government takes forever to get anything. And if this is in preview, my guess is no.
Now, having said that about preview, all of this functionality is in East.
Even still, I don't know if there's much AI stuff.
Right.
At all.
Yeah, it might be one of those, instead of Microsoft helping plug everything in together for you, you have to start winding it up yourself. Because even this, honestly, this is the reason I like Microsoft doing this. When I first did the AI stuff, having had to work this kind of job, this was one of my first thoughts is, if you could have somebody just listen to all the phone calls, you wouldn't have to have a human do it. The manager can just go, okay, here's the calls we got, this is the kind of call. Because you could have a good person, like, realistically, if you're a supervisor, at the end of day, or probably day after with batch processing, I don't know, how many calls did Mike do yesterday? Well, he did 50. Okay, show me. And you can just sit there like, here's the summary of this call, here's the summary of that call, and you just go down the line, and you can even have a numeric thing like, this call was positive, this call was negative, where you can just have a dashboard break out each employee by day and start winding up more advanced reporting. So again, if I was talking to a client who was doing call centers, I'm going, you guys have to do this. This is going to save you so much time and money. It'd be crazy not to. Have all the bugs been worked out of it? Probably not, but we're close enough that we can start doing the test, especially since realistically, you're maybe looking at like $100, $120 per person per month. How much time is that going to save the supervisor or anybody else who's listening to calls per month? So that's my take on it anyway.
Question?
Yes.
The real time, do you know what the lag is? Like could you theoretically, if you were like someplace that does orders over the phone, like, I don't know, Tesla, and you realize in Canada, when they switch to French, certain people just screw up the call and lose the sale. So like, could you in real time switch over? Like, is the delay short enough in real time to kind of make those decisions when they see
The experience I've seen is the delay is noticeable. It's not just a
10 seconds.
it's like a long pause. That's the feel, because I didn't time it. It felt like a pause. Having said that, it's reasonably quick, and you can point out the documents that Microsoft has. They run the real-time stuff faster because you have to. So that's one of the use cases is in the speech. We didn't get into it here, but in the speech part of the Azure AI service, you can pick different voices, and certain languages will have different voices you can pick. So like in this case of French, I believe there's multiple French voices. I know there's multiple English voices. There's no Klingon voices, which I thought was funny because Klingon is in there, but there's no Klingon voices. But yeah, so they obviously want to go to...
Continue real quick, Mike.
Oh, yeah. So they want to get to a point where it is going to be fast enough. I think probably a combination of how fast can they send the data as well as processing. Because I'm sure in the next year or two, especially on a good connection, you're going to start getting that back and forth, as well as probably getting better inflection on the bot. I wouldn't recommend it right now to use AI for direct customer service. Caveat of, I think it's great for chat. Because
Well, not even that. I was just going to say, like, a real-time rule where, like, okay, I know, like, based on my training data, this set of people, like, when it looks like they want to cancel an order, this 20% of people are my go-to. If I can detect, it looks like they want to cancel the order, switch them to
Escalate it to a supervisor.
Okay.
related to that set of people who's good at that. You know, maybe it's a supervisor, maybe it's not.
I hadn't thought of that before. That is an interesting question. My first gut check on that would be, because you'd probably want some interaction with the customer if they're reading along in real time. But that is interesting.
Or
as
I
well as
guess-
having the people be available.
I guess too, if this call starts getting heated, could you send an alert to the supervisor to have the supervisor hop on the call and try to calm it down? So is it quick enough that you could hop on the call before the
Right now,
guy's
I'm going to
done?
say no, because we're back to it doesn't do sentiment analysis real time.
Oh,
So it's transcribing it, but it's not doing the positive, negative, neutral real time.
I see.
Now,
To transcribe, you can put a rule to say cancel order or like, don't buy this car.
yeah, you could probably have triggers there, which might alert out.
Or you could have the a keyword say if the agent says pineapple, alert the.
Yeah.
Alert
As soon as you start hearing profanity,
have a
kick
safe
over.
word. Pineapple. Ah.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, that's something. It's like I said, there's still some constraints now. Like losing sentiment analysis to me is huge because at that point you're getting a transcription, but the person coming in will be coming in blind. Like, is this good, bad, or neutral? Probably bad because I'm talking, but I don't actually know what was going on coming in at that point. I mean, or the weirdness of we've all been in this one where you have to read something while you're talking. There's always hiccups there. So if I have the Azure's sending me messages about what's going on in the call right before I get on there, and the call engages, it's like I'm trying to read while I'm stepping into a hostile call situation. That might be a little difficult. I do like the idea of real time being able to do escalation or move things around. That is very interesting. I don't think they're there yet, though. I think we're probably, I mean, since this itself is pretty new, we might be a year or two away, but that's really not that long in the scheme of things. But chat's pretty awesome. I'm a big fan of that, the chat stuff in general, and that one you actually can get away from human interaction. But then you enter the world of tokens, and that gets to be a little weird. That's going to start improving. Like, I can't remember some berserk amount of tokens the new Google Gemini has. It was some berserk amount where I'm like, that can't be real, and even some of the stuff where it's claims like 10 billion tokens, but you're really not going to be able to do that. And then even in my head I'm going, if I have to send like 1 billion tokens, what am I paying Google? Like, what astronomical fee are they going to extract out of me for that many tokens?
Might as well just buy your own data center at that point.
Yeah. Send light breakers to my house to go collect. Sorry, I can't pay. I was running a D&D game out of Gemini. Ah. Anything else? Anybody else online? Like,
Nope, no
shut this
questions online.
maniac up?
No questions online.
Okay,
Any other
cool,
questions
cool.
here? Awesome.
Well, I think I'm done then.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
No problemo.
All right, so just to wrap up, next month we're hopefully going to hear from another one of our Microsoft gurus at STG, Dallin. We're
That
good?
guy.
Okay. So Dallin Farnes will be talking to us next month about some Azure DevOps, super stuff that you can do in there. So that should be really awesome. So hopefully we can get everybody there. And as always, we're looking for presenters. In the near future, we're hoping to have Frank present when he retires and doesn't have to worry about his job anymore, right? No, but so anytime anybody wants to present, we're always looking for presenters. We're going to keep running this thing as long as we can. I think it's valuable to have an Azure group where we can go and chat with other like-minded individuals, and hopefully we'll be a driving force where we can start crushing AWS. That's my goal, is to make AWS go away. But, all right, thanks everybody. We'll see you next month. And just so you know,
hand this back to you.